The sun was high in the sky, beating down on the narrow country lane I had driven countless times. This road, flanked by centuries-old oaks and rolling pastures, had always been the shortcut to my family's property. I had grown up exploring the woods, chasing rabbits, and riding my bike along this very path. It was more than just a road, it was part of my history. So, when I saw the bright metal gate across the road, my heart sank. At first, I thought it was a temporary barrier. Construction, perhaps. But the shiny padlock glinting in the sun suggested otherwise. My first instinct was confusion. Who would block a road that had been used freely for decades? I got out of my car, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes, and walked toward the gate. There was a sign pinned to the post, bold letters declaring private property, no trespassing. My mind raced. This stretch of land had been used publicly, without interruption, for as long as anyone could remember. I remembered my father driving me down this road when I was a child, waving to neighbors and talking about the way the county had historically allowed passage here. Could someone simply decide to claim it now? I glanced around, hoping to spot the owner or at least someone who could explain this sudden change. That's when I saw him, a tall man with a bristly beard, standing on the other side of the gate, arms crossed. His eyes were cold, his expression unreadable. "This road ends here now," he said without preamble. "Private property. You can't pass." His tone was firm, leaving no room for discussion. I felt a surge of anger and disbelief. "I've driven this road my entire life," I shouted over the distance, my voice cracking. "It's always been public access. You can't just block it off." He shook his head. "I can, and I did. If you want to go any further, you'll need permission from me." He didn't move aside. It was clear that logic or history didn't matter to him. I returned to my car, frustration bubbling inside me. I needed answers and fast. Who was this man? And why had he suddenly decided to cut off access to a road that countless families had depended on? There had to be a mistake. I drove back toward town, determined to find anyone who could shed light on this audacious move. At the local town hall, I discovered a maze of records and old maps. County clerks scratched their heads at first, then one elderly worker handed me a bundle of papers. She muttered, "It's strange, but someone did file a deed recently. The thing is," she trailed off, looking at me with sympathy, "it may not be legitimate." My pulse quickened. Could this man be trying to take land that wasn't his? Could he really prevent access to property that didn't belong to him? I left the town hall with copies of every document they had, scanning through legalese and scribbles, my heart pounding with anticipation and a rising sense of justice. I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let someone arbitrarily block my family's road, not without a fight. Back at home, I spread the town hall documents across the kitchen table. The air smelled faintly of coffee and old wood, but I barely noticed. My mind was consumed with maps, deeds, and legal jargon. The papers painted a confusing picture. According to the county records, this man whose name appeared on the recently filed deed claimed ownership of a strip of land that included the road in question. Yet the older maps clearly showed that the road had always been a public right-of-way, used by locals for generations. The contrast was stark, almost absurd. I knew I couldn't rely on memory alone. The deeds filing might be an attempt to seize control, but legally, I needed concrete proof to challenge it. My first step was to find any historical documentation of the road's public status. I called old neighbors, people whose families had lived in the area for decades. Some were skeptical at first, dismissing me with a shake of the head. "That road? Oh, we've always used it, never questioned it." One elderly woman, Mrs. Daly, remembered her grandfather hauling hay down that exact stretch of land nearly 90 years ago. She even offered to write a statement for me, confirming the road had never been private in her lifetime. Next, I reached out to the county surveyor. The surveyor, a meticulous man named Greg, listened patiently as I explained the situation. "You have historical precedents on your side," he said, adjusting his glasses. "If we can trace consistent public use over the years, it can be a solid foundation for challenging this deed." He agreed to visit the property, measuring and recording boundaries, while I photographed every marker, every old fence post, and even the stones that lined the sides of the road. Even as I gathered evidence, obstacles kept cropping up. The man who blocked the road, Mr. Thornton, as I later learned, was increasingly aggressive. One afternoon, as I tried to photograph the gate, he stormed out, waving his arms. "You're trespassing," he barked. "I've called the sheriff, don't make me come over there." His tone was threatening, but I stayed calm, showing him the documents I had obtained from the county. His eyes narrowed, and he muttered something under his breath before retreating behind the gate. Clearly he sensed I wasn't bluffing. Despite these tense encounters, I refused to back down. Each day, I added more proof. Historical maps from the library archives, affidavits from elderly neighbors, and photos showing the road's continuous use. The deeper I dug, the more it became apparent that Mr. Thornton had attempted to exploit a loophole, filing a deed that didn't match historical reality. My determination hardened. Late one evening, as I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by stacks of papers, I realized the situation wasn't just about a blocked road. It was about standing up for what was right, for history, and for the community that had relied on this path for generations. And above all, it was about proving that truth, when backed by evidence, could withstand even the most audacious attempts at deception, I finally felt ready. The pieces were in place: documented history, eyewitness testimony, and legal research. All that remained was the confrontation with Mr. Thornton. I knew it wouldn't be easy. He was stubborn, manipulative, and clearly believed the land was his. But for the first time since discovering the gate, I felt a surge of confidence. I wasn't walking into this blindly. I had prepared meticulously. Tomorrow, I would return to the road. This time, I would not just argue, I would show him the deed that proved his claim was baseless, and finally reclaim access to the path that had always belonged to the public. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth as I drove back to the blocked road. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. Today, it wouldn't be about waiting, documenting, or gathering evidence. Today, it would be about confronting Mr. Thornton directly, armed, not with anger, but with the undeniable truth. As I approached the gate, I saw him standing in the same spot as before, arms crossed, looking every bit the guardian of his claimed domain. He didn't smile, didn't wave. He just glared, as if daring me to step closer. But this time, I had the power of certainty on my side. I stepped out of the car, holding the folder of deeds, historical maps, affidavits, and county records tightly against my chest. "I see you've returned," he said, his voice dripping with annoyance. "I told you this is private property. You're trespassing." "I'm not trespassing," I replied calmly, holding up the folder. "I'm here to show you the truth. This road has always been public. Your deed doesn't override decades of historical use and legal documentation." I placed the folder on top of the gate and opened it, revealing the scanned maps and town records. He leaned in, squinting at the documents. "That's just paper," he scoffed. "The deed is real. I filed it last month. That makes it mine." I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. "Not quite. Filing a deed doesn't create ownership where it never existed. Look at these records maps from the 1930s, affidavits from neighbors, county documentation showing public right-of-way. You can't simply erase history with a signature." For a moment, he looked rattled, but then his lips twisted into a sneer. "You think you know more than me. I've got lawyers who will back this up. You don't belong here." I took a deep breath and pointed to a specific map, clearly marked with the road and public easements. "This isn't about belief or lawyers, it's about evidence. Every document here proves the road has been used publicly for generations. You can try to claim it, but legally, it's not yours to block." There was a tense silence. Birds chirped in the distance, and the wind rustled the leaves, carrying a sense of judgment in the quiet. He flipped through the papers reluctantly, and for the first time, I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The bravado, the anger, it wavered. I don't know," he muttered, finally, his voice lower, almost defensive. I didn't interrupt. I let the weight of the evidence speak for itself. After several long minutes, he finally stepped aside, muttering something about consulting with his lawyer. But there was no argument, no confrontation. The gate swung open easily, and I felt a wave of relief and vindication. This road, my family's road, the community's road, was once again accessible. As I walked down the familiar gravel path, I realized something important. This confrontation wasn't just about property lines or deeds. It was about standing up for what's right, about persistence, preparation, and the courage to face someone who thought they could rewrite history. And in that quiet victory, I understood that sometimes showing the truth is the strongest weapon of all. With the gate now open, I drove slowly down the road, the crunch of gravel under the tires sounding almost triumphant. The familiar landscape stretched out before me, the tall oaks casting long shadows across the path, the rolling fields glowing golden in the late afternoon sun. I felt a sense of quiet victory, not the kind that comes from anger or confrontation, but from justice served through careful preparation and patience. The road, once threatened with closure, was restored, and with it, a piece of community history preserved. Back at home, I spread out the documents I had used against Mr. Thornton. The maps, deeds, affidavits, and county records no longer felt like mere papers. They were symbols of persistence and evidence triumphing over arrogance. I thought about the hours I had spent calling neighbors, digging through archives, and meticulously gathering proof. Every late night and long conversation had mattered. Every small detail, like the deck's old fence post still standing at the edge of the road, became a piece of the puzzle that revealed the truth. The incident with Mr. Thornton also left me reflecting on human nature. Some people are willing to bend rules and claim what doesn't belong to them when they think no one is watching. Others, like myself and the neighbors who supported me, are driven by a sense of fairness, history, and the greater good. The confrontation had been tense, but it taught me the value of preparation, calm reasoning, and standing firmly on the side of evidence rather than emotion. I realized that courage isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's simply showing up and letting facts speak for themselves. Over the following weeks, the local community expressed relief and gratitude. Neighbors came by, sharing stories about the road, how it had been a path for children walking to school, for farmers moving livestock, and for families visiting one another. Some even admitted that they had assumed the road might disappear forever. but my persistence had restored more than access, it had preserved a sense of shared heritage. These conversations reinforced a deep sense of connection to the place, reminding me why this fight mattered beyond legal boundaries. As for Mr. Thornton, the county eventually reviewed his deed claim and determined it was invalid due to improper filing and the undeniable evidence of historical public use. While he had initially tried to assert control, the law, guided by the clear record of the past, sided with reality rather than ambition. I never sought revenge or prolonged confrontation. I simply ensured that the truth, backed by documentation and persistence, was recognized. Sitting once more at my kitchen table, I reflected on the journey. The blocked road had been more than an obstacle. It had been a test of patience, diligence, and courage. It reminded me that history matters, that shared spaces are valuable, and that standing up for what is right, even when it seems inconvenient or challenging, can protect not just oneself, but an entire community. In the end, the road remained open, a simple gravel path winding through fields and forests, but it symbolized something larger: resilience, justice, and the quiet power of determination. And as I walked down that familiar path, feeling the gravel under my feet and the wind rustling through the trees, I knew that sometimes showing the deed is enough to reclaim what truly belongs to all of us.